review. Hey, Joanna, could I ask you about your staff meetings and what you're thinking about?
Oh, yeah.
Because, last year due to COVID, we actually didn't have that issue because we were trying to separate our staff and they certainly cleaned more efficiently. Thank God, because we had a lot of staff that did not come back last year due to COVID because they were making too much on unemployment. So it was a real struggle last year. So anyway, I know you've got 28 cabins and a whole different ball game at your place, but I'm just curious how you handle that.
Yeah, sure. I'll talk about that for a minute. My head was going in a bunch of different directions listening to Keela. We had some staff, I want to use the word conflict, Josh is over here, last year. And we didn't have the issue that they didn't come back, but I guess we noticed, I don't know, maybe from using Keela's words, we noticed like our needs and their needs were different. So for us, the frustration was we were so diligent in COVID because we thought if somebody got quarantined, we were just really up a creek without a paddle. If our whole staff went down or if any of us owners went down. So we were trying to be so cautious. And so we put in some pretty strict rules. They live on site here, some of them. So we feel like we have a lot of control over the free housing we give them. So we made some really strict rules. They didn't like them. And that felt really tough. It felt like, yeah, that was really tough. And I think our needs were diverging, right? Our need for safety, their need for fun, they're in college. And so we had some issues there. And I think maybe listening to Keela, Josh and I were like, I think we'll maybe be more open and upfront about our needs and their needs and just let them know, so like bringing that into the conversation, that's what we were thinking of. And then probably more frequent than we do. We do a Saturday meeting, but of course, Saturdays, we all know are like the busiest, busy day. So we just cram it all in. It's only task focused. We don't really connect. We just blah, 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 try to get through the list. And I know that's not the most effective way to create community. So
we struggled too, because we try to get 3 or 4 crews going. And Ryan, for several years, he felt it was incredibly important to have those initial meetings at the beginning of the day to kind of assign whatever. And what we found was people were kind of coming and going, they're coming in late and then they were interrupting the meeting and they didn't hear the information. And it was just a real struggle. So, having gone away from that last year, I think was definitely more efficient. It certainly wasn't a good way to get overarching information to, I was thinking when you guys were talking, I'm thinking of maybe just creating just a simple, 1-page thing and just putting it on our bulletin board. When staff come in, they put we put messages there. That's where they mark their hours down. Maybe I'll just put some of the common things that we really would like them, please don't use your cell phone. Hopefully you're eating protein before you come to work so you have energy. Take your 25-minute break. Make sure you take that. But, if I emphasize we're only wanting 20 minutes to a half an hour for a break, that will give them permission, but also give them a time frame, which I think we were lacking before. So that lingering of, lunch hour just kind of, oh my God, it crept and crept and crept. And it really felt taken advantage of those years. So I bet nobody else is having those issues probably because everybody else has got like 2 or 3 people, right? But thank you for sharing.
One other thing, Kim, we did last year that was actually a COVID thing, but I think I'll keep it, is we have 5 crews that run on Saturdays. I stagger started them, and it was to avoid the interaction for COVID, but it actually was way more positive. Now, so we focus on team building within these small teams instead of all together because I just can't manage everybody. So we stagger started, and it gave me a moment, 10 minutes to connect with each group. And that was better because some crews were missing certain thing, but not another. So it ended up being more efficient in my 10 minutes with them, more connecting.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Cleaning crew. I
have a question related to employees. If this is a Cracker Barrel. Housing, Joanna, you mentioned that you house them. How many people actually house employees, like a dock boy or whatever, that are kind of a full-time employee? What problems have you had? What should we, because I'm thinking of doing this, buying a trailer and hopefully getting somebody up from Minneapolis or something like that. Talk about that a little bit, please. Anybody that does that.
we did last year, because we were so like, we were so worried about paying people with COVID and stuff. So we ended up having a friend like in exchange for housing. I mean, we still paid him, but that was just like part of it. And it was great. We're doing it again this year. We actually still have staff living with us this winter, which was kind of unexpected. But one issue that I connected with Joanna on is like, he's a single guy. So, I mean, do you set up rules where they can't be in relationships with guests? I was not expecting that one, and we ran into it. What is Josh doing?
He's doing the half like, ooh, ooh, ooh.
So we ended up having, I mean, this guest didn't know boundaries very well anyway. But like they're making out in our basement, like that's our house. So James is like, no, texted him like, get out, this is inappropriate. But we didn't lay down those ground rules ahead of time. So, and he's a grown adult, Anyway, sidebar, but that's one thing, boundaries and rules with guests.
Also,
wait till it's your kids.
If you're housing them, does that, obviously maybe that has some effect on the amount that you pay them, or I don't know how to justify
I don't
that.
want to take up this. Is anybody else housing staff? I can talk on this unless somebody else wants to.
Perfect.
No one else is crazy enough. I do understand that. There are pros and cons to this housing staff. I think Kayla brings up a really good point. You got to set the ground rules ahead of time and the expectations very firmly. We have not housed like grown adults like she's talking about. That might feel like you don't need the rules. You probably still do, but we house mostly college students. So it's really easy to go parent mode on them, in my opinion. So yeah, we make really strict rules about
guest interaction.
Who can be in there? Can they drink in there? If they're 21, all that has to be addressed. What their expectations are on and off the clock. That living on site has some expectations of working outside of their clock hours if they're going to live here. We don't charge. Our housing for the staff are pretty old cabins. They've been there since, they're old. So they're not like these brand new buildings that are built. So we don't charge them. They don't have internet. They don't have cable. They're like kind of glamping. And then, yeah, did I say we don't charge them for it? We don't pay that. We pay them the same. We don't adjust for that. We are considering building a new staff housing place, and I'm going to rephrase it. We will charge or change pay once it's a new building. But I think you just have to be really, really upfront with your expectations.
With all staff too.
Yeah, all staff, but especially when they're living on site.
Joanna or Tom, have you tried work campers, or has anyone else tried work camping situations where that has been successful? I've tossed around that idea too. We have only 4 campsites. Maybe, Joanna, you don't have campsites.
Right, no.
That's not an issue for you, but I remember Tom Osell talking about that being a godsend for him up at the Boundary Waters, because talk about a rural area where you don't have a pool of people to pull from. You just connected up with retired people who were from Texas or wherever, and they came up for a summer. He said the advantages were that you typically had an older crowd who were dedicated, that would do the work, that were experienced. They had natural tendency to flow with guests. The downside is these people also tended to want to do different things every summer and see the country. So you might just train them, but they'd only be there for a season. So if that's worth anything. Guess not.
Joanna, I got a question on when you have those kids on site, I'm assuming they have set hours. And then do you find that like if something comes up outside of those hours that you'll reach out and have them do things basically off the clock? Does that happen?
We do, yes. And that has been a big benefit for us. So like if we're eating dinner with the kids and someone wants a motor, we can delegate that and not go away from our family. And they have been really open. We've kind of laid that expectation to begin with, but we also tell them if you feel like you're being asked to do a bunch and that's adding up, clock those hours in, because we don't want, them to feel taken advantage of. But they do very willingly do lots of stuff for us.
Yeah.
That's kind of was my thought with having, kind of the lodging piece of it. Look, we're letting you stay here. There's going to be times that you're going to have to get a boat ready, or I think from our earlier conversations on the sidebar, toilet unplugged. And you're not necessarily at a clock, but that's interesting. So
Yeah, that's been a pro for us.
yeah, we have not done it at all. And like Tom, I'm kind of like you. I've been kicking it around because I do have a piece of property that I could do that on. Just really reluctant to go that route yet. So. So we have about another 15 minutes yet. Hey, Casey, good to see you.
So anybody that has any questions, even if you don't have your video on, feel free, jump in.
Mike, I was gift marked for you.
What was that?
I was gift marked for you. You gather okay?
Yeah, yep. So
It was 2 very long days for me.
yeah, it was different this year. Several of our vendors weren't there. So we did a bunch online ahead of time. So we really only did it in one day this time. So
Lucky you.
are they having the show that they normally have up in, was it Grand Rapids or that Northern Lakes, or they call the Northern Show or something? We've never gone to
We were
that.
here for just a little while, but I don't think it lasted long.
Okay.
That was one down by Brainerd, but
I have a weird thing to throw out there. We're making a new swim platform, and we could use some used poles for docks. Does anybody have some used ones, or know of a resource that we could go and get some cheap poles for our docks? I think we need about 4 or 6. Okay.
Well, Reamer Dock would be the place that I would go in Reamer. They have all kinds of raw metal supplies that you can go there and just purchase directly from them. They purchase in bulk. I think you get a better price than if you're trying to, the only other place that I would usually go is Menards, because they have those pipes are the same pipe, but Reamer Dock and Reamer.
Thanks, Tom.
if you just need a few pieces, definitely go for Reamer. They pass on their steel price. Whether they build a dock for you or you buy the steel from them, it's basically the same price.
Huh.
Kind of an odd place. We just bought 3 new roll-ins for this year from them, so.
Really?
Yeah, 5 slip, 6 slip, something like that. I don't know, big bill. But there's a place down North Minneapolis that does just bulk steel. But for only 4 or 6 pieces, it doesn't really work. We've done that in the past, take the big trailer and go down there and load up, 5 years worth of stuff, but that's long and annoying day too.
I can't believe we don't have any old things lying around, because we have a lot of crap lying around, like I suppose other people do too. I was grateful we got rid of some of the steel, the steel infrastructure of some old docks that we had sitting around for 20 flipping years. Finally got that hauled to the dump last fall. Anyway, the endless task of
I was gonna say, Mike and Linda, you guys have campers that stay there that then they work for you, is that right?
Yeah, we've had a few. Yep.
Okay, how's that worked out? We were just talking about that a little bit earlier, and with utilizing campsites and.
Well, it works great. We took existing. Yeah, I mean, they were already staying here, and then they ended up working for us. That usually is what happened. The big thing is to set your boundaries up ahead of time. So one thing we did, Mike's dad did in the past, was they got free rent, and we don't do that anymore. So that didn't work out so well, because rent goes up, and so what used to be free rent 25 years ago or 30 years ago is not equating to the same. So that's the one thing I recommend, is just make sure you have clear boundaries. But other than that, they're the hardest workers. They're so loyal,
Honest, yeah.
honest. You can trust them. You know, we could always just know that our resort was in good hands. So
So,
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead, Teresa.
I was just going to say that we have been contemplating making an old trailer house site into a campsite, and we have chosen to offer it to somebody who is a frequent guest here that has been looking for property. So, and we were just thinking of offering it to them, but then they brought up the idea of, well, could we work off the rent? So again, so I'm listening and hearing that the boundary idea is the best way to go on this.
just make sure what you set up, you can live with forever, because things change. We had a situation where we had a manager come on that worked for us, and we gave her a spot, and you know, a few years down the road, then it didn't work out so well.
Yeah.
So then you're faced with that situation. And that's why you want to approach every situation knowing that at any point it could end. And so you have to have an out clause.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we'll, we're going to hash it out with them this summer when they're here. So we'll see what happens then.
Just curious, Linda and Mike, what are your top 3 things that you regret not putting a boundary about? I got the rent. Are there 2 other things you can think of off the top of your head that you wish you would have put in a few years ago, just to help those of us out who are contemplating this topic?
Well, you know, there's a lot of things. Do you have something to say, Mike?
Well, the one couple we had working for us retired. They both were retired postal workers, and they didn't shoot us, so we're good.
Yeah.
So, but as they get older, you know, Jerry was 60 when he retired, and you can do a lot when you're 60, but now when you're 80, you can't do the same job. It was an issue.
So how did you handle that, or what did you wish you would have done when he started? Put like a parameter of how many hours that
Right. We should have just put them hourly instead of giving them rent. Because then when you can't do the job, you're not putting in the hours, you're just not getting the hours. And they were getting their rent.
And we were paying them for their work.
Yeah. So
I would be clear about their duties and about their time. And, you know, we just had to grandfather them in until they could no longer work for us. And we felt, well, you know, they put in so many good years. They were awesome people. So they were, you know, awesome in their time. And so we just thought, well, you know, I guess it's a way to honor them as being older and retiring, you know, and they're now no longer with us. But that's what I would just encourage, is just, so that's one, you know, lunch breaks. I saw someone talking about that earlier too. You know, we pay them through the break. So just making sure, if you're going to do that, that you're, you know, that you're comfortable with what you stick with, because you can never, ever go back. Raises, they got raises every year. And so now they're working for us 30 years and we're still giving them a raise. And, you know, those are things to think about, you know, what you do today.
Hey guys.
Anyway, so.
Thanks for sharing, Linda. That's fantastic information. We were really craving that specificity about that type of thing, because I think we've all probably contemplated that. For here too, we've got 4 campsites and 2 of them are really not rented very well. So I really tossed around the idea of work campers and connecting up with that program online. So
they're great workers, and they're very responsible. They take on the place like it's their own.
Right.
In that sense, it's great. And they're, you know, they've had a career and a life, and this is their fun job. So they enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious out there, how many of y'all have that full-time or part-time not a manager, but more than a grunt, you know, that maintenance-y type person. We've got 3 cabins that are located right in the middle of our world. We own land around them, and when we buy those things, nobody wants to rent them for the summer because they're not on the water and all that. So we're trying to find a use for them that makes some kind of sense. I'm just wondering how many out there have that maintenance type person who lives on site or is there all the time anyway.
That'd be my husband.
We don't, our on-site staff probably doesn't do that maintenance piece like you're talking about, Casey. They're maybe that, I think you said the word grunt, like maybe more high, that, you know.
Somebody more than a grunt, but
Yeah,
not
they
quite
do a
so
lot
that
of
you can run the place,
activities
you know?
and like groundskeeping, but like, they don't fix stuff in the cabins or, I
Okay.
suppose they fix some things specifically like dock sections or stuff, but
Yeah, but they're just our standard employees.
yeah.
Okay.
Hey, can you guys hear me? This is Kim over at Pine Beach.
Yep, we can, Kim.
Okay, I'm on safe driving mode, but I figured out how to at least listen the whole time. I'm out dealing with the driveway because we've gotten a lot more snow than what they thought, and I've got some check-ins today. We've done the camper and live on site thing, and when I can find somebody, it's been wonderful. But one of the things I'd add to some of the things that everybody's already talked about is we put in half their time flex time with here's your list of what's to be covered during your flex time. That way, if it's a really great calm day and there's a boat available and they want to go out fishing, they can. The weed whacking still gets done. And then I have hours that are concrete. Please clean the pontoons. The shower house needs to be checked by this, time in the morning. So just throwing it out there. It's worked well for me. I wish I could find somebody for this season, but I haven't yet.
Same thing we're hitting into, tons of applications. Nobody show up to work though.
I didn't hear that last part. Sorry.
We've had just dozens and dozens of applications roll in, but maybe 1 in 10 shows up for the interview, and half of the ones that show up for the interview don't show up for their first day of work. It's the unending unemployment that's screwing us at this point. I mean, nobody shows up to work.
So not to change topics, but I'm just wondering how ice is on everybody's lake. Mine is still pretty solid on my lake. Yours is pretty thin? Okay. We've had some swans and geese flying over, so honk, honk, honk. They're waiting as anxiously as we are to get ice out. I suspect that our ice out will be, I don't know, 3 weeks early anyway? I don't know about you guys. 4 weeks?
About the same. Yeah, we only maxed out, I think we had 25 inches was the most we had. On a good year, we should have had 48 or so inches. And I think we're down to, last guy who went out a week or two ago, he had 16 inches, so going quick.
And surely they're not allowing ice houses. Surely all the ice houses are off the ice, I'm assuming.
I don't know like they are anyways, but there's always that one guy we watched one guy years ago literally plowing water with his Tahoe trying to get his ice house off the lake in time. That was humorous.
I'm glad it was humorous and not fatal, because you're always hearing about one guy.
Yep, we did that this last fall. There was one of the neighbors across my bay, and half the bay is still open water, and they're 20 feet from the edge. And I'm looking at all my diving gear, wondering if I should get it ready or not. And luckily, they didn't go in, but I was going to charge them an arm and a leg if I had to go in after them. I did not enjoy that kind of cold water.
Hey, since we're talking a little bit about ice and ice fishing, Jennifer Bateman, Lake Country Resort Sales, used to own a resort, now I sell them. I'm curious to know if anybody this last winter did ice castles to go. So you buy an ice castle in the fall, you have it at your resort, people come to your resort, hook it up to their truck, take it wherever they want to go, whether it's Winnie or Red or, you know, Lake of the Woods, wherever, use it for the weekend, deliver it back to you. We have one resort that started that. They literally bought a brand new ice castle in the fall, rented it out all winter long. And now in the spring, he sold it. And there's such a demand for these ice castles that it only cost, he sold it for $300 less than what he bought it for. You know, and so now he doesn't have to pay for the thing, and he'll probably buy another one in the fall. And I just think that's brilliant. So, you know, it's like easy ice cream. He said that the resort insurance covered that, because that was my first question to him. He said the resort insurance covered it.
Which company does he have? I'll switch to his, because I don't mind.
You can buy his resort if you want. He owns a resort. But see, that way he can, you know, he can get some money and he doesn't have to maintain a road. He doesn't have to, you know, I don't know. It just seemed like a pretty good idea. So I'm just throwing that out there for other people that have ice fishing. You know, if you live in ice fishing territory, might be something to think about.
I know, Casey, you said something about insurance. What is that? What you meant is where does insurance? Yeah. Because I think I talked to y'all earlier that we bought a water slide, and I found out that our insurance company will drop us if they find out that we have a slide in the water. So I asked a resort or buy us here, because I know they have a slide. So I've been checking around with different insurance companies that allow slides. Anybody else have a idea of who they would recommend to chat that with?
It's tough. No matter who you go to, even our guy, we started 20 years ago with the water trampolines, and every year when we add a piece, we have to take a picture of it, exactly what the piece is, where it's going to go, how deep the water is. If I forget to tell them about one single piece, if anything does happen, we're dropped the next day. So I was asking her about who his insurance company was, because I know my guy, if I was saying, yep, hey, hook onto this thing with your truck and drive all the way up to Red Lake with it, he's not going to cover that ice castle way up on Red Lake off property. So,
we have auto owners through Pine Insurance, and as of late, the last couple of years, it has not been any issue as far as what we have in the water. We had a bouncer, and we got rid of that one. We got a new one this year. I've also got like this jungle gym thing, and it doesn't add any additional to the insurance. So check with Dan at Pine Insurance.
That's great, because
he's also one of our associate members as well.
All right, thank you.
His contact information, Teresa, is listed on the CMR website.
Yep.
Along with the other associate members who are insurance carriers.
Yeah, I think somebody had recommended him as well. So another thing is if anybody uses FunBugs, we have 2 for sale.
Really?
Yeah.
I might be interested.
Okay.
How do you have FunBugs for sale? Did you stock up when
they just don't get used? We kept them on the dock, and we're at the side of the lake where it's just seems always windy here, so they're too hard to use. So we're trying something different.